Most homes don't need a huge spring declutter. They just need to feel lighter. You know that moment when spring starts to show up and suddenly your home just feels heavy? Not messy, not out of control, just heavier than it did a few months ago. And it can be confusing because nothing major has happened. You didn't suddenly bring in a bunch of new things, you didn't stop cleaning, but the space just doesn't feel the same anymore. And a lot of the advice this time of year jumps straight into deep cleaning everything, or doing a full home declutter. But if you live in a small space, you already know that's not always realistic. And it's usually not even what you need, because in smaller homes, the biggest shifts don't come from doing more, they come from removing just enough pressure from the space so it can breathe again. When a home feels heavy, it's usually not one big problem, it's layers. And winter naturally adds layers to our homes. Think about your space over the last few months. Extra blankets on the couch, heavier bedding, bulkier clothes, maybe even extra items sitting out because you've been using them more often. And none of that is wrong. That's what makes a home feel cozy in the winter. But when those layers stay as the season changes, they start to take up more space than you realize, especially in a small home. Because now, instead of those items rotating in and out, they're all living in the space at the same time. So what that looks like in real life? A chair that always has a blanket on it, a bed that feels visually full all the time, closets that feel tighter, surfaces that have just a few extra things sitting on them. Individually, none of it feels like clutter, but together it creates weight. This is where furniture that stores well makes a huge difference. Instead of trying to find new places to put things, you're using the space that already exists. For example, a bed with built-in storage can hold your off-season bedding, extra blankets, even clothing that you're not using right now. So instead of those items sitting out or overflowing into other areas, they disappear into a space that was already part of the room. And that one shift alone can make the entire space feel lighter. Another place where heaviness builds quickly is on the surfaces you see every day. And this is something a lot of people overlook because we tend to focus on everything we own instead of what's constantly in our line of sight. Think of your nightstand, coffee table, kitchen counter, entry table. These areas collect items slowly. A book, a candle, a charger, a few small things you use often. And over time, those layers build. Even if everything is organized, your brain is still processing all of it visually. And that's what creates that feeling of heaviness. So instead of decluttering everything, try this. Remove about 1/3 of what's sitting out. Not because it's clutter, not because it doesn't belong, just to create more breathing room. You're not getting rid of anything. You're just reducing the visual load. And that small shift can make a room feel calmer almost immediately. Another subtle reason homes feel heavier in winter is the type of storage we use. A lot of organizing solutions are very functional. Plastic bins, hard containers, utility pieces, and they work. But visually they can add to the feeling of density in your space, even if everything is technically organized. This is where softer storage can completely change the feel of a room. Woven baskets, fabric bins, textured containers. They still hold the same items, blankets, books, everyday things, but visually they blend into the space in a much calmer way. So instead of storage feeling like something separate from your home, it becomes part of the environment. And that's when a space starts to feel lighter without losing that sense of warmth. One of the biggest shifts in small space living is realizing that your furniture should be doing most of the work. If your furniture is working well, you don't need as many organizers, you don't need as many visible storage solutions, and you don't have to constantly manage your space. A bench that stores blankets, a coffee table with hidden compartments, an entry table with drawers. These aren't just nice to have, they're what allows your home to stay functional without feeling overcrowded. And this is really the difference between trying to organize a space and having a space that's designed to support you. Spring doesn't have to mean tearing your entire home apart. Most of the time, a lighter home comes from a few small shifts. Removing the layers you don't need right now, creating more space on the surfaces you see every day, using storage that feels calm instead of heavy, and letting your furniture carry more of the load. When those things start working together, even a small home can feel open, calm, and easy to live in. And sometimes that's all spring really needs to bring. a little more space to breathe. Until next week, bye-bye.